Welcome to Dr. Lotte's Science with Soul, the podcast that transcends the boundaries between science and spirituality. Prepare to be uplifted, transformed, and awakened to create a path to healing your own life physically, emotionally, and spiritually by bridging the gap between science and soul. Have you ever questioned why you are facing emotional or physical difficulties in your life? I am thrilled to invite you to my free online event hosted by the Shift Network, titled Explore Quantum Entanglement and Your Mother Wound: How Transforming Inherited Traumas Can Lead to Healing Your Mother Line and Reclaiming Your Personal Power. You'll uncover the deep-rooted sources of your challenges, whether they're emotional, physical, or spiritual, and discover how you hold the power to create profound healing in your own life. I'll share insights that will reveal how intricately connected we all are within the web of life. Join me as I guide you through a transformative shamanic meditation journey, helping you explore the powerful links between your life struggle, your maternal heritage, and the divine feminine. To join me for this free 1-hour online event, visit the link in the episode show notes or visit my website at drlotte.com. I can't wait to embark on this journey with you. Welcome to Dr. Lotte's Science with Soul. Today's guest is Jeralyn Glass, an internationally acclaimed singer and pioneering figure in the realm of sound healing. Jeralyn Glass is renowned for her groundbreaking work with alchemy crystal singing bowls. Starting her career on Broadway, she graced opera and concert stages across the globe before making her mark in the world of holistic healing and music medicine. Uniting the realms of classical music and high vibrational sound, she brings a distinctive alchemy that resonates with audiences worldwide. By harnessing the power of music and sacred frequencies, she offers a form of musical alchemy that nourishes our bodies, connects us with our hearts, and awakens our consciousness. Jeralyn is the founder of Crystal Cadence, a dedicated sound healing studio housing the Los Angeles Crystal Tones Singing Bowl Temple of Alchemy. This unique sanctuary presents one of the world's most extensive collections of singing bowl instruments available for purchase. She is the author of Sacred Vibrations, the Transformative Power of Crystalline Sound and Music, as well as many singing bowl audio meditations. So welcome, Jeralyn. It's such an honor to have you as a guest today.
Thank you, Dr. Lotte. I'm excited to be here with you.
And for those that are watching this on YouTube, you can see all the amazing singing bowls behind Jeralyn that she has promised to play a little bit for us later on. So, and for the people who are just listening, just tune in and you're going to get to hear some singing bowls. So, Jeralyn has an amazing background. Not probably what most people would think, but you came, I mean, you were on performing on opera stages and Broadway shows all around the world. So, how did you get into the sound healing? Tell us, about your journey. How did you become a sound healer?
That's a great big question, Dr. Lotte. I think that when I was a child, I always knew that music was going to be my life's path, and I started taking singing lessons when I was age 11. I sang a solo in the choir in middle school, and everyone said to my parents, "What are you going to do? She's talented." And so I started singing lessons, and my teacher just turned 102. So, and she still sings. It's pretty incredible. So music has been my life for as long as I can remember. And my dream was to be on Broadway, and I accomplished that at age 19. And then the world of music, I think, began to guide me into classical music, which took me then eventually to Europe, and then it took me to the Far East and traveling all over the world. And I think the feeling and then the knowing, the experience that we each are a human instrument, and each of us has our own unique timbre. Each of us has our own vibrational signature. And I would say, as a singer, I understood that because, especially doing classical music and opera and Broadway, for the most part in classical music, you're not mic'd. So you have to be able to strengthen your instrument like a vocal athlete and be able to project, sometimes in a 3,000 seat theater, over a 100-piece orchestra with no amplification. So I understood very well in every cell of me that I was an instrument, right? And so uh, music being something that just, connected us. So wherever I was singing in the world, it didn't matter if we spoke the same language. Music was that connection of our hearts. And I don't think there's anything else really that does it as music does it. So 18 years ago, I was traveling with my mom and I heard the singing bowls. And I had already been implementing actually Himalayan singing bowls into my own meditative practice. I had found them at a really cool shop in Cologne in Germany. So when I was living at that time in Bonn, Germany, and it was still the capital of Germany. And I bought three of them. And so when I would travel, I would take those singing bowls and I'd put one on my belly and I'd tap it and I'd play with it. I'd hum with it. I'd do my prayers and meditation with it. So I always loved instruments. And so when I discovered the crystalline instruments, it was like, wow, these are unlike anything I've ever heard. And when I first heard the demonstration, it was like, wow, it reminded me of something I knew, of a sound that I knew. It was totally different than the Himalayan singing bowls, because now that I can share with you, I understand we are crystalline in nature. So we all have a crystalline structure in our blood and in our bones. And there was something about those instruments that went deep inside me, different than any other instrument. And I love the sound of a full, rich orchestra. I love the cello. I love the flute, but nothing was that experience of the singing bowls. So I started to play them. And I brought a set of 7 home to Germany where I was living at the time. And one was corresponding to each of the energy centers in the body, or the chakras. So you have C, D, E, F, G, and A, starting with the root chakra, the sacral chakra, your solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. So it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, right? So those are the notes of those singing bowls that I got. And I started to use them with my students. So I'm also a professor of voice. And what I noticed is if somebody had a blockage in their voice, they'd play one of the singing bowls. I'd ask them to choose one, and then I'd ask them to open their jaw and just ah, oh, e, just to make different sounds with the bowls, different vowel sounds with the bowls. And what would happen is their voice would open. So that was kind of my first experience as a teacher, just finding, wow, if I can't get through a certain exercise or a technical thing to open someone's voice, the bowls helped. Now, why, Dr. Lotte? And I think it's because there's an act of entrainment. So the bowls, when you entrain your voice, you match your voice to the sound of a bowl, suddenly something starts to be activated inside you, and places in the body where you have stored emotional trauma, physical trauma, injuries, pain, heartbreak, whatever it is, disappointment, um, the sound of the bowl in conjunction with your voice would free the energy. And in the one situation with a young girl, she was 17, she suddenly remembered a traumatic experience from her childhood, and the whole voice then opened up, and we got her to sing freely. So that was kind of my first experience with them. And my son at the time was 13, and when I had brought the bowls home to Germany, he was 7. So he loved them, and he was a pianist and he was a singer and he played the guitar. And he was like, "Mommy, bring me to bed with my sound blanket." So he loved it, and he'd love if I put one little bowl on his belly, and he'd say, "That's my tummy tickles. I love that." So he knew those bowls, and he first experienced them when he was 13, and he had his voice change. So at that point, I had never accompanied a young person through their voice change, and he had entered a big national singing contest in Germany called Jugendmusiziert, and it supports young people and children in the arts. And he had a 15-minute program singing and dancing and speaking a monologue, and he made it to the semifinals, and he goes, "Mom, Mom, my voice, something's happening." And his voice was changing. So we used the bowls. And at that time, he chose, it was a little yellow citrine bowl, a G note. And I really knew later that G corresponded to the throat chakra. It didn't strike me at that point. And yellow citrine was working with the solar plexus, so it was working with enabling his courage and his confidence and his self-esteem. So we worked with those bowls. We dropped the keys of his song so they could be lower. And Dr. Lotte, he walked out on that stage and he said, "Hi, my name is Dylan, and since 1 week, I'm no longer a soprano." And everybody roared. And I just thought, my son is in such a vulnerable place in his life, and he finds his sense of humor and he sails into his program and he nailed everything. So it was like, those were the two first things that I saw. Again, before I had gotten into sound healing at all, I just loved those bowls as beautiful instruments, very special sounds. But it wasn't until 9 years ago, my son Dylan, my only child, he passed away. And so, as you can imagine, that took me into a journey that no parent ever really expects, and no parent wants to walk that path. And it began with sound vibration on the night that he died. And I walked down to the beach with a dear friend that had known Dylan since he was a child in Germany. And we saw this huge shooting star that seemed to begin over my parents' home and cross the LA basin and land in the mountains behind LA. And I heard Dylan's voice, "Mom, Mom, it's like we always talked about. I'm home. I'm with God." And he was referring to those times in his childhood when I brought him to bed with the bowls. And so, you can imagine you're in shock, you're in grief, you're just numbed out. But I heard him, and my friend Peter heard and saw the shooting star too. So that began this journey that has taken me into this field of sound. And of course, for me, I had to find something, and I knew it wasn't going to be a pill. That there was no pill that could calm a mother's heart. There was no pill that could somehow take the grief away. I mean, if there had been a pill that could have brought him back, that's the one I would have taken. But it doesn't exist, right? And I knew I've got to be able to sit in the grief and feel it, or it's never going to be able to heal. And so, to answer in a long way your question, that's what happened. When Dylan passed, he guided me into sound. And a couple months after his death, I was sitting in the kitchen one day and he continued to communicate with me. "Mom, call the bowl dudes. We're going to do sound healing." I'm like, "What?" And we had a very close relationship. So we had very funny conversations together. "Son, I'm grieving you. Like, leave me alone. I don't want to do anything. Leave me alone. I'm grieving you." And it was 3 days in a row, Dr. Lotte. "Call the bowl dudes. We're going to do sound healing." And knowing that he knew those bowls really well, it was like, okay. So I begrudgingly got on the phone, and this is what happened. I bought 11 more bowls, and I chose them according to alchemies. I chose rose quartz for my heart. I chose charcoal to cleanse and clarify and detoxify from the grief. I chose amethyst to connect me to the divine, and celestite to connect me to the celestial realms. And then I started playing those bowls. I chose a selenite, which was about grounded white light. And as I played that selenite bowl, I just felt this misty white presence in the room. And I started to keen and groan and cry like I had not been able to release the grief. You know what I was saying to you earlier, like the bowl entrained with my grief. And the crazy thing was, it sounded like nails on a chalkboard. And so I was like, as a musician, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Why does the bowl sound so bad? I had no idea the bowl was reflecting what I couldn't express in any of my talk therapy sessions. I couldn't get to that depth of the grief, right? And then suddenly the sound was holding me. I felt Dylan guiding me, and then I was able to keen and make sounds that were just healing. And I'll never forget, after that first session, I got up to wash my face and I looked at my face in the mirror and there was light in my eyes. So I was just like, okay, son, I get it. We're on to something, and you're trying to guide me into something that is going to help me to transform the grief. And that's how this path all started. And that was 9 years ago.
Wow. I mean, what an incredible journey, right? I mean, it's so divinely guided in the end. It's like this is how it's supposed to be, because you wouldn't fulfill your incarnation if it wasn't for Dylan passing and going to the other side and then guiding you. I mean, I've heard many stories like this, and have the mothers then become they're guided to do something. And it's like that child in the spirit world is really saying, all right, mom, we got this. And this is what you have to do. I mean, it's just, so such divine guidance. And we are part of that. I mean, it's
I
just
know.
amazing.
I have
It is,
goosebumps when you say that because often I think, my goodness, I reflect upon, everything that's happened now in the last 9 years and think like none of this would have happened if you were here on the earth. And he just laughs. And it's like, mom, we have a soul contract. And it's like, I don't remember signing that soul contract. And when I see you again, son, we're gonna have a talk about that. But he just laughs. It's just
yeah.
like, mom, and I sort of look at sometimes this destiny as his soul making a sacrifice, because working with that selenite bowl really helped me to create the concept of this bridge between heaven and earth, and that we as human beings with our unique vibrational signature, which I've learned is our responsibility to tune. I need to tune myself, and when I'm out of tune and I'm dissonant, I need to take responsibility and try to tune myself. And when I do, I become that bridge. Like you said, it's possible for all of us. And Dylan and my relationship, it's really eternal. And as a parent in this human form, I've come to accept that and to find joy again, knowing that this is a bond that will be forever. And so for anyone, whether it's grief you're working with or whatever it is, there is a connection beyond this physical body. And for me, that connection is through sound and music that really gives us a bigger picture of our lives. Just as you said, Dr. Lotte, it's like we're not we're not victims. We're not victims of these circumstances. As a matter of fact, these circumstances, I venture to say I chose it, but
Yeah.
these circumstances are put there for us to grow and to become exactly what you said, the soul that we were meant to become, the being that we were meant to live in this human form.
Right. I mean, it's always through the struggles that we become somebody else. It doesn't matter what the struggle is, but it's the hurdles that we have to climb over in life that change us, that makes us grow and then step into what it is we came to do in the first place, right? If I hadn't been sick forever and had two near-death experiences, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I'd probably still be working for corporate America, right? But it's we have to go through these traumatic experiences, but that's also what propels us to do something very special for the world and helping other people. Right. And everybody has a journey. That's what I tell people. Don't think that your journey doesn't count because it does. Everybody has a journey and it doesn't matter. You might have incarnated to be the 9 to 5 person. That's your job in this life is to go to this corporation 9 to 5 and then retire because you did a lot of things in other lives and that's the life you have in this life. Right. Everybody has a purpose. So,
I liken that to each of us as a member of the Universal Orchestra,
yep.
right? So you might be the flute, I might be the piano, someone else
Yep.
might be the cello or the violin, and it's like, okay, what are we playing? And how are we going to collaborate together to really make harmonious music?
Yeah, I know I'm right there with you because we're all one in the end. When people get upset about racism and wars, yeah, I mean, in past life, I was probably a Russian, and before that, I was Chinese, and before that, I was Israeli. Before that, I was a Palestinian, right? And so we've all had lives all over the world, and we have to come together and we have to understand we're all one. And exactly like you're saying, we're all playing a different instrument in this life, but it's one big orchestra and
And I
if the
think,
orchestra is not tuned, then right, if the violins aren't tuned, then the orchestra is not going to sound too great. So it's really funny because I used to have this on my website, and it was like 20 years ago. I had this epiphany from reading different books, and I read a book. I don't even remember the name of the book, but I believe he was an MD, and he talked about he was a cancer doctor, about this man who had a singing bowl, and he would get the singing bowl. I don't know if it was some kind of a monk or something, but he would start playing, and he would sit in the hallway and play this bowl, and everybody would just line up in the hallway, all the patients, because they liked that sound so much. And that was like 20 years ago, and I was reading all different kinds of things. And I remember telling my friend, I said, that's it. It's like every disease is just a different note. And if we could just figure out what note to play, then we could heal all the diseases. And then the spirit world stepped in and said, yeah, but it's not for you to do. Somebody else is going to do that. You might use it, but somebody else is doing that. So
That's
I
so
was like, and here
interesting.
you are. Here you are. So you're one of those people that are doing that. So it's just fascinating, because it's just all that information just came to me like 20 years ago. It was the early 2000s. Yeah, but I
Yeah,
think it was actually around 2004.
I think you're referring to Dr. Mitchell Gaynor,
Hmm.
who had an oncology clinic in New York. He's passed away now, but I quote
Yes,
him in
it
the
was in New
book.
York.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
quote him in the book, and that one of his books is The Power of Sound. And his mom had cancer, and he was very motivated to work with sound because, again, you know so well, like there are so many things that ail us, so many things that bring us out of tune that there is no prescription for. There's no pill for, and it's our journey to find out, okay, how do I tune my heart? How do I tune my gut? How do I tune my lower back? How do I bring myself back into this state of wholeness? What things can I do?
Yeah. So how do you figure out what note you need? So let's say you have a friend that has gastrointestinal issues, and she has bloating, and she has gas, she has alternating constipation and diarrhea, kind of IBS symptoms, just because it's so common. I see it so much. So, how would they know? Would that be the same note or tune that all those people would need? Or would it be, no, Mary needs one tone and Billy needs another tone? Like, how do you figure it out?
I mean, that's my passion. And so, for example, I worked with someone who had a diagnosis that they wanted to remove her colon. And she just said, you know what? I came into this planet, I came onto this earth with all my parts, and I'm going to leave with all my parts. And so she worked with also natural doctors. She did ozone treatments, etc. But we worked with sound. And the bowl that she loved, and this is what's so interesting. So when we work at the alchemy bowls, you have not only the note itself, but you have the tuning. So is it tuned to 432 hertz? Is it tuned to 440 hertz, which is music today, or is it tuned to 528 hertz? And those are the three primary tunings. So they're all very different. Then you have the alchemy. So do I like amethyst? Do I like peridot? Do I like the feel of salt? For me, I was drawn to this charcoal. So in that case with that woman, I used, and when we go at it, it's not really one to one. So I used an A sharp bowl, which is technically the third eye, especially the pineal and pituitary glands, right? I used a big bowl that was very grounding. So technically, the resonance of that bowl was below her body. And the alchemy, and it was a 440, so it was music today, and the alchemy was rose quartz. So you put all those things together, and the pain or what's causing the ailment that you're talking about, the digestive ailment, or in this case, her, um, it ended up being diagnosed as Crohn's disease. But the original blockage may not be in the lower intestine. Now, was her original blockage here in her mental capacity, in her biochemistry of the pineal and pituitary? I don't know the answer to that, but I know that's the bowl that she loved. We put that big bowl on her belly, and we did session after session after session. And I'm very happy to say she still has all her parts today, and she is thriving, and she is now 70. So,
Wow.
that's the fun part of the prescription. It's finding, where is that person at a tune? Where was the original blockage? So the young girl that I told you about, where we were working with her singing voice and she had a blockage, the bowl she chose was a D note. So the D is at the sacral chakra. The tuning of that bowl was 432 hertz, so kind of a lower, more grounding. It's a tuning that we used in Baroque music, in earlier music. And then the alchemy was Ocean Indium. So it was about flow. It was also the color of the throat chakra. Again, there's so many elements that you put together. But when she played that D note and started singing with it, she remembered a sexual abuse from her childhood. Now, the D note definitely was in that area of the body, but the rest was about flow. The rest was about more grounding. So it to answer your question, it's very, very one of a kind.
Wow.
You
It's
can't
very,
make a
yeah.
prescription say, okay, if you have this, take this. I'm working towards that, but we don't know what's buried in the subconscious of people, or as you mentioned, in another life you were a different nationality. We don't know what each person and each soul is carrying inside of them. So I think by working with music, it gives you it's a really full picture that can touch in areas that you could never consciously speak about. It takes us in the ineffable. And that for me is where healing happens. It happens in a place beyond our thinking mind.
No, it makes perfect sense because I mean, I work a lot with ancestral healing. And, just because you say, I have a fear of sirens, which is a classic one, it does, everybody might have a different reason of why that is happening, but the fear is the same. But, what is it? And you have to figure out what it is for that person in order to resolve it because you can't heal something you don't know what it is. Right. So it's very similar in that you have to figure out, well, where is it? Where did it start? Where is it coming from? I mean, have you ever seen people coming in with past life issues?
Sometimes, and there was one experience that I'll never forget that experience. And I wasn't sure, it was at the beginning of my journey working with sound. So, I was very well trained as a musician, but to enter into this more realm of I don't know, it's not really esoteric, but it's just, you can't, it's not a black and white world. Somebody had an experience where they just stood up after the sound bath and they said, I saw an ancient person at the doorway. And she was like, he was giving me a message of years, generations back. And he was telling me how to cleanse and clear and heal patterns that were in my family. And she was like, do you know who he was? Right. And it was just like, ground in and listen to the message and breathe and feel, where do you feel that in your body, because the image she described was so clear. So yes, I mean, people sometimes go back far, they go ahead, they get images of, I don't know, that they can't associate necessarily where it comes from, but there's a message being given to them. Or a lot of times people will see geometric shapes, or they'll see different colors, or they'll connect to their grandmother who passed, who then brings them comfort or a message. So sound really has a way to still the thinking mind, and then to allow us to travel beyond that. But at the same time, the way I work, I feel like it's really important that no matter what in a sound bath experience, that you are grounded. Because I don't want the experience of somebody floating up and out and they don't know how to come back and they don't know how to integrate. And what I'm what I learned through my whole traveling through journeying through death, and my son's, you know, communication with me, was I needed to continue to up level my own vibrational frequency. At the same time, I needed to really learn to ground. And that was very hard for me because I wanted to get out of my body. It just hurt too much. I needed to learn to ground and embody the higher frequencies that I was experiencing from the singing bowls. And then I needed to learn that when I embodied that and integrated that, I could sustain that new vibrational frequency. And that was a whole, that was a whole new way of learning, because again, when you're feeling badly, you want to have something that just takes you out of your pain. But the important thing is, how do we heal? We learn to integrate what we're experiencing, and then we learn to sustain that new place of up leveling. That was really important for me.
Yeah. I mean, what a journey to learn all that. And I know you just came out with a book, July 2024, called Sacred Vibrations: The Transformative Power of Crystalline Sound and Music. So, what inspired you to write this book, and what are the key messages you hope readers will take away from this?
Yeah, for those of you that can see, I'm holding the book up, but you can find it on our website with all kinds of information about it on crystalcadence.com. This was such a journey of the heart, Dr. Lotte. I think it was really important that I could share with people what I had experienced. And I've always been a teacher, and I love to help people find their voice and then learn how to express their voice freely and follow their life path. So I felt very drawn to share with people. There's different threads that run throughout the book. So there's the threads of the communication from Dylan, from my son, and these miracles of communication, of light, of sound vibration, of yeah, they're threaded throughout the book, and there's a number of them that are just, for me, were mind blowing. Then there's the question of, okay, what is this singing bowl? How do they work? What's their history? Um, how do I create a sound bath? Why is this kind of sound bath effective? So there's the structure of sound, then there's some history of sound as a healing modality. You know, how did sound begin in different cultures? There's contributions by colleagues and dear friends, such as Dr. Daniel Levitin, who's a very famous neuroscientist, really talking about what is the power of music and how are we creating this whole new area of study called music as medicine. So that runs throughout the book too. And then I there's something called Sound RX. So there's little boxes in the book that have share experiences of what I've experienced with clients and students, and then what my practitioners out in the world, what things they've experienced. So how has it been working with autism? How has it been working with Parkinson's? How has it been working with cancer patients, hospice patients, veterans, children? Um, so those things are threaded throughout. And, you know, to recognize that we are working in a field, what now really is being called music as medicine, that certainly for the bowls, we just have this anecdotal evidence. There's not yet scientific studies done. And so we've started a collaboration. So I created an educational platform called the Sacred Science of Sound. And we created a collaboration now with Minerva Institute, which is located in San Francisco. And it's been 3 years in a row voted the most innovative university in the world. They have students from over 100 countries. They study abroad. It's a really incredible concept. And so we have begun a lab there called it's Music, Science, Health, and Wellness, a lab to explore. And that just began last year in June of 2023. So I write a little bit about that in the book and what the principle is behind that, and the idea of how we are working with the bowls, because they're an instrument unlike any other sound healing instruments. There's a little bit about tuning forks in the book, because those have been a really great instrument in the field of sound. So it's a combination of all these different things, and then my personal story of why music, and why is that this medicine for all of us now? Why is it something that connects us heart to heart? We did two pieces of music that are mentioned in the book. One is an album called Pentatonic Visions. You can see, those of you who can see, you can see the top picture is the Pentatonic Visions, a journey through crystalline landscapes. And that's all based on the pentatonic scale, which I talk a little bit about in the book. Like, why is that important? You know, and we know it from songs like My Girl, Amazing Grace, that's built on the pentatonic. So that's one of the albums. And then there's a single song called Joy Reboot, which is based on the theme of the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, which we know really around the world is joyful, joyful, we adore thee, right? And so I took that theme and created a piece with colleagues and friends, with crystal singing bowls, and it starts in different musical keys. So it traverses from the lower chakras up to the higher chakras, passes through the heart, and goes down to the root. And there's something really magical for me about what is it when Beethoven wrote that piece, and it really is about unity for all mankind. And that theme, the theme from the Ninth Symphony, has become the anthem for the European Union. So it definitely is for me an expression of music as having the ability to really unify us. And when I was pregnant with Dylan, I sang a series of the Ninth of Beethoven. And after he was born, whenever he would cry, I put that music on. Boom, he was still. So there is something for all of us, mothers, fathers, but babies and children really respond to the music that we surround them with, the music that they hear when they're in utero, and the music they hear when they're growing up. And I really feel strongly as part of the book that if we can find music and integrate music that's more really with intention, and the intention to unify and heal, that we can make some really great changes in our lives and the lives of the children to come. So that's all part of the book.
Oh, it's amazing. And then you also have an app and like oracle cards. You tell
Yeah,
us
so
about
the
that.
app, again, those who can see, the app is called Source Be Inspired. And the platform, there's 20 visualizers on the app, and we made it very affordable. So it's a combination of the science behind sound. So it was very important for me. Like, for example, the cover of the book, this image is from the Sinoscope, and it's an instrument that was invented by John Stuart Reid, who's an acoustic physics scientist in England. And this shows what sound looks like made visible. So this is actually the beautiful image of a small F note bowl. So F being the note of the heart, but it's a high one. So it's technically above the crown. It's above and beyond. And this was very unusual because it has 22 of these antinodes, and Dylan was born in Germany at 2222. So this seemed like, and it's, a heart bowl, this seemed like the perfect image for the cover. And so, like, for example, John is on the app and he teaches about, well, what is cymatics? Why is that important? So I'm feeling like this platform of Source, the app, Be Inspired, is what is the science behind sound? For example, what is constructive and destructive sound? That's explained by Jonathan Goldman. Dr. Sue Morter has things about bioenergetics and body awake yoga. So there's yoga on there too. So it's all about how do we integrate science, spirituality, and the healing power of music. And Dylan inspired me to do that. He said to me 4 years ago, Mom, we're going to make an app. I'm like, no, son, please. I'm just please. But it's like, no, Mom, this is really important. And there's some meditations. There's longer sound baths on there. So there's hour sound baths. There's a special piece called Bass and Bowls that has the 5-time Grammy Award winning bass player Victor Wooten on it with me. There's things for children. There's little meditations for children done by children. So the idea was to bring to humanity this platform of music as medicine. And then, what's really the science behind it, and how can I integrate it in my own life to bring wholeness and health and healing? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. You're like a walking miracle.
I, I know sometimes I'm just like, son, really? I'm not the youngest anymore. It's like, come on, Mom, have fun. We got a lot to do. And it just feels, again, when we look at our world, no matter where we are in the world, um, we're just needing a reboot, like this Joy Reboot song. And I think we're needing an up leveling. We're needing things to calm the fight or flight. So, for example, Joy Reboot starts in the key of E flat, which is the musical key of fight or flight. So, how do we calm that? Because, I mean, all of us are feeling anxious and concerned and worried, and things are getting more expensive, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do we bring this warm embrace and this sense of deep calm and groundedness to humanity, to all of us? How do we do that? And I feel like music with intention is really an answer to what is happening for us now more than ever.
Yeah. So when people come to you and they say, I'd like to get a singing bowl, how do they choose one? Do you help them choose, or do they
Yeah.
say, I mean, so many people are like, I like this crystal, I like this color, right? Or do they just play it and say, this is the one?
I actually do consultations. So we actually do a consultations. I spend 45 minutes with someone and they're done virtually. So I have clients all over the world and we talk about a lot of different things. Are you a musician? Do you want to combine it with music? And if you do, then we need to talk about, are you playing your music in 440 hertz tuning? Are you playing it in 432 hertz tuning? There's both 528 hertz tuning. I ask lots of different questions and I actually write about that in the book. And I use the example of my beloved daughter from another mother is Janae Aiko, and she's been integrating the singing bowls into her pop music now for the last couple of years. And there's a beautiful recording called the Triggered Protection Mantra of just her and 3 singing bowls. But I use her as an example when she came to me and I didn't know who she was. And we had a conversation. How did she choose her first bowls with me? What was that based on? So, again, each bowl is one of a kind. And it's really finding what is a vibrational match for you. And sometimes um, working with people, they think it's going to be one thing, and then when they feel and hear the bowl, they recognize it's really something else. So I love this discovery process, and I write about a few other situations in which I help somebody choose a set, and then how that worked. So it's very fascinating. It's very creative, and it's very, it comes from all my years as being a professional musician and then playing the bowls 18 years and understanding them, I would say, really, really, really well. It's fun.
Wow.
It's very creative.
Right. So if people are thinking, wow, I would love to, let's say people are listening saying, I'm struggling with cancer, I'm struggling with this disease or that disease. I wonder if, getting a singing bowl could help me. So, but they could just get a consultation online with you
Hmm.
and then you ship them the bowl or
Yep.
set of bowls or.
Yep, whatever. And it's, again, it's really, I'm sure that you know that too, that all medicine, there really is not a one size fits all. So the joy for me is that connection, just like we are connecting now and having this great, I hope, conversation. It's that, it's how do you connect heart to heart, and then what do I feel and how do they feel and what sounds good to them. And I just love the integrity of finding that sound or sounds that feels good to people. It's a very powerful medicine. I tell in the book about one story of two daughters who brought their mother to me from another country who had Parkinson's, and so I had her in person, and we tried all kinds of different bowls, and then she chose one that she loved, which was rose quartz and platinum, and it was the note of an F. It was the note of the heart, and then it was a practitioner bowl, so it's on a handle, and I used that bowl around her body, all around her body, and I watched Dr. Lotte in front of my eyes. The shaking stopped, and she purchased that bowl and took it home and was having very, very great results with her disease, and her kids were really happy. So
Yeah, it's
it's
amazing.
so individual.
Hmm. No, I'm right there with you. It's the frequency, I swear. Like, if we could just find the right frequency for everyone, we could create so much more healing in the world. Because there is a difference. Everybody's differently, uniquely tuned, and it's the combination of the different frequencies. I'm thinking of their own experiences that created the frequencies that then created the disease. So it has
Right.
to be individual. There can't be one glove fits all. That's what's wrong with the Western medicine anyway. I mean, you go to the doctor, and I get all the people that fall through the cracks. So, it's like they ran all the tests and they can't find anything wrong, and then they get gaslighted, and if they're a woman, then they also typically gets offered a antidepressant, and I'm not depressed, I don't need it. But that's what we see a lot because that's just Western medicine. So, it's so nice to find people like you that have something else to offer, that have seen good results. And if it's meant for them, guess what? They might heal too. Right. But I tell people we don't know exactly who's going to heal by what. So use everything, use all the tools, try the tools for yourself and see what works.
And nobody can really, I'm going to say, people, we can guide people on their healing journey, but the important thing I think for each of us is to be able to shine the flashlight inside each of us and to really not be afraid to breathe and feel and to look and to see and to follow what feels to each of you, that that's the truth for you. Because sometimes I recognized that I gave my power away so easily and thought that somebody else must know more than I do. And I think through Dylan's passing and this discovery of this way of sound, the first question you asked me, like, how did sound healing become this path for you, is it was so organic, and it was so much in resonance and in harmony with me as a human being. I didn't want to be drugged. They offered me antidepressants also, and it was like, I don't want to be drugged. I know that I have to be brave enough to feel, or I'm not going to be able to heal. And one of our hospice doctors that I work with here in Los Angeles, he has said that, there may not be a cure for everybody and everything, and yet everyone can heal. And for me, I've understood that to mean there is a bigger purpose for each of us. What we talk about in chakras 8 and 9 above the crown, like our life and our soul purpose, our connection to God in a very deep way, and this bigger picture of our lives. And so Dylan's picture wasn't to live to 19, and when I talked once to a psychic shortly after his passing, she said to me, he wasn't going to live a long life. And every hair stood on end in my skin. And it was like some part of me actually knew that, but I never consciously thought about it. She said whether it was at 19 now or at 23 in a car accident, he was never going to live a long life. And so you think about that idea that each of us has our own destiny, and maybe we can't cure, so maybe we can't change that destiny, but we can come to a place of healing and peace of mind and know, okay, this is what I'm here for in this lifetime. And I find that incredibly comforting, to know that I do have the power to shift inside of me. And, whether you just, whether you just use your own voice and tone or hum, but you activate your vibration, I feel like this is really crucial. Like, there are times when I get so upset at certain things, and if I just sit and hum or move my voice, up and down like that, it'll calm me down. It calms me down very much. So I don't know. Music truly is such a medicine for all of us, and if we're open to that, I think it can really. I've seen it bring major miracles.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's amazing. So, um, before I want you to play a little sample too with your bowls, but I think I'm going to do it at the end so you can just kind of
Sure.
play for 2 or 3 minutes. So before I let you start playing, let me say, let me thank you for being on the podcast because you're going to play it until the end now, and taking the time to being a guest and spending time with the listeners today. How do people learn more about you?
Hmm. So they can go to our website, Crystal Cadence, crystalcadence.com. And then we have a YouTube channel that Dylan encouraged me to create starting, I think, in 2017, that has a whole bunch of free meditations and songs. And we started something called Tune Up Tuesday. And it's so there's a number of them on the YouTube channel, and 2 2-hour loops. There's a new loop coming for sleep. And this is all free. He wanted me to make that available to everybody. So there's that. And then our social media, Crystal Cadence LA. All our music is on the website. So there's a lot of different music that you can download also from our website. And then I teach over 120 hours of trainings. So really teach people, whether they're a chiropractor, a nurse, a medical doctor, a yoga instructor, how to use the bowls and to use them in a really integral and responsible manner, because there's so much power in that. And so that's on Crystal Cadence too. And what else? We have a members portal that people can join, and if they want to be closer in the inner circle, there's guest speakers every month, there's meditations every month, and then there's a live meeting every month, and that's the members of the members portal from all over the world. And that's also listed on our website. And then bowls, if you're interested in bowls, you can also make your appointment there on crystalcadence.com.
Fascinating. So I can't wait for you now to give us a little bit of a sample. She gave me a sample before we started this podcast, and the bowls sound absolutely amazing. And we have a whole crystal set, and we got the old Tibetan bowls. We have a lot of bowls in this house, but I have to say your bowls are amazing. So I can't
Thank
wait
you.
for you to share the sound.
So just take a listen what I explained before. This is an advanced chakra set. So listen. So those are the 7 notes that I hummed for you before, and then comes this. Okay, so I included the 2 life and soul purpose, and then take a listen down here. This is a very grounding sound below the feet. So I'm going to play these all together, and I invite you to set an intention, a personal intention, what you would like from the sound, because frequency plus intent equals healing or transformation, as said by sound healing pioneer Jonathan Goldman, who's also in the book. So if you can, just close your eyes and allow your breath to slow down. When you slow down your breath, you slow Just remembering that the crystalline sound is absorbed by every cell of you. It's still playing, and as it fades into silence, just know that silence is indeed golden, and in the still moments of your lives, find that peace, find that calm that you have heard and experienced in the crystalline sound. And many, many blessings of light and of love, of health, of wellness, and of peace.
As we conclude this episode, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence within my community. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share this podcast episode. Join my free newsletter in the show notes and receive new podcast episodes delivered right to your inbox. If you resonate with the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and are motivated to embark on a journey of personal healing, I invite you to connect with me at drlotte.com. Together, we can pave a path towards transformative healing in your own life.